Fantastic guest today. His name is Mike McClellan, and he is a national treasure to Australia. His career spans 5 decades, is one of the most enduring and acclaimed, respected singer-songwriters that Australia's ever produced, and he has a number of concerts throughout October and November of this year that he's going to be performing. He's also known as the Song and Dance Man. Mike, thank you so much for joining me on my show.
It's a great pleasure, mate. I'm delighted that you've invited me.
No, it's a pleasure. Pleasure to have you. And as I said, you're known as the Song and Dance Man. And that track put you out on the top of the charts when it came out.
Yes, it did. And for that, I'm, of course, eternally grateful. There's always, for anybody who has a hit, that sense of you reaching a much broader audience. And when it took off and was a hit and became Song of the Year back in '74, it gave me the opportunity then to spend my life for the next 10 or 15 years focusing on my music, touring and playing concerts. And it was the real breakthrough for me at that point, Biagio.
Yeah, because that's what artists look for, isn't it? When they're in their career, starting their careers, that breakthrough, then they can build on it like you obviously have.
Oh, indeed. And, as much as I've been labeled the Song and Dance Man, and most people, generally speaking, only know me for that, of course, and that for a songwriter is somewhat limiting in that, as a writer, I often think there's a lot of other material that is at least as good and some, if not better. But to have that as a tag gives people an easy way to identify me, which is very gratifying.
Yeah, so that was off your second album, but you had an album before that.
I did indeed. I'd done an earlier album for the label owned by Col Joy and his brother Kevin, and it was a critical success, but it didn't have anything on it that was a radio hit, and but it was a very good learning experience actually, which was great.
Yeah, and talking about the Song and Dance Man track, that also you won an award for the Annual Music Industry Awards in 1975.
I did indeed. It was nominated up against Harry Vanda and George Young's song Evie, which they recorded for Stevie Wright. It was up against some a Skyhook song. It was up against a couple of other very, very major songwriters. And to be perfectly honest, it surprised the hell out of me when that song was chosen as Song of the Year, because I'd always thought that Harry and George would probably win it, given their track record for producing extraordinarily successful hit songs.
Oh, you're humble, Mike. It was a great track. That's why you won the award. But you also toured with some big names. I got some names here that I was reading: Roger Miller, Malene, Dr. Hook, the Hollies, Rick Nelson, John Farnham.
Rick and John covered one of my songs. Rick Nelson covered Rock and Roll Lady, which was also covered by a lot of other people. And John covered Saturday Dance on an album he did for EMI before he recorded Whispering Jack. I actually played guitar for John on that session when he did my song. I did a lovely version of it. And he's a stunning singer. He really is. He's extraordinary.
Amazing talent, yeah.
The touring was as a support act. Roger Miller was terrific company. Very often, if you tour as a support act for an international act coming into Australia, they barely take any notice of you at all. But there were occasions when I sat in his room in the hotel we were staying in with him and his guitar player. We swapped songs and played songs and shared a few beers, and he was the most delightful company. Very unpretentious, very engaging, a beautiful writer, and a lovely man, actually. I felt very privileged.
Yeah, sounds like he's one of the good guys of the industry.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah. But Mike, you also compared a television show, a series called National Star Quest. And you also did a highly successful ABC program called Country Road, but then became Mike McClellan's Country Music. Have I got it all right?
It did indeed. The Talent Quest show was done for regional television in the days when there were regional networks aside from the major commercial city networks. the series I did for the ABC began as a show called Country Roads. When I took it over, we kept that title for the first of the 4 series I did. We then changed it to Mike McClellan's Country Music, largely because I felt that to just purely label it country music was a little bit limiting. And I'm not, whilst I love good country music, I'm not a country singer as such. I've never felt comfortable being tagged as that. And I've tended to move within a variety of different genres, both as a songwriter and a performer. But of course, as a performer, I've always basically sat there with my acoustic guitar and worked solo. There are occasions when I've had bands, but not often. So for me to be tagged as a country singer was inappropriate, which then gave me the opportunity to make the last 3 series much broader in context. So, I would include a Jimmy Webb song. I can recall doing The Moon's a Harsh Mistress at one stage on the show. So it was me exploring the other music that I did apart from country music, which was very successful and very beneficial, because in those days, of course, a lot of rural Australia only had the ABC, plus, if they were lucky, one commercial network. So it gave me an audience out in rural Australia and provincial Australia that I might not have been able to tag. So it was very successful in that regard.
And you also, Mike, toured overseas quite extensively, UK, America. You were away for a period of time, I believe.
I was away at one stage, for nearly 2 years. I lived in London, played some festivals and some small venues in England, some small venues in America. I played a concert a little while ago in a pub in Cork in Ireland, which was wonderful. I've never forgotten turning up to the pub to play the gig. And before me was a really traditional Irish band, like you might find in any pub in any city or town in Ireland, playing a session where they just all toss around instruments. And the audience talked and carried on and didn't really listen. And I thought, this could be difficult. Then when I got up, they shut up.
Right.
And they were incredibly quiet, very, very enthusiastic at the end of every song. And the reception was wonderful. So I felt quite relieved, actually.
Nah, that's great. And also, Mike, you have contributed to some of the most memorable advertising on television that we've grown up with, writing concepts, words, music for clients such as Australian Airlines, Red Rooster, Channel 9, TUI's, Forex. How was that experience?
A lot of those were done for Mojo. When I came back from living in London, the industry had changed. My then wife and I wanted to have kids and settle down a bit. I wanted to give away the traveling. And I was very aware of the work that was being done by Alan Morris and Alan Johnson, who were the 2 guys that started Mojo, and did some freelance work for them initially. And they finally convinced me after about 8 months that I should work exclusively for them. I didn't write the TUI's stuff. I did some of the TUI's ads at a later stage. That was their campaign. The Forex campaign, they'd just won Forex when I started to do some jobs for them. They did one commercial and set up the I Can Feel a Forex line. And then I've never forgotten Joe saying to me, here, have a crack at this. He said, I'm getting a little repetitive. We need a change of musical content and concepts. So have a go at this. So I then subsequently did the next 2 or 3 Forex commercials for them. They were very successful. They're great fun to do. Australian Airlines, of course, was entirely mine. Red Rooster one of them was entirely mine. One was a joint effort with another writer. And advertising is a very collaborative process, because you have a writer and an art director, and you take what you've written to a director to create a commercial for you. So it's contributions from a lot of people are what in the end make good commercials.
Yeah. And you, Mike, you were also a senior tutor at the CMAA Country Music Academy in Tamworth, because you're
Indeed.
originally a teacher, right?
I started life as a school teacher, Biagio. Yeah. Which didn't last long.
Yeah.
I I resigned after about 3 years. I went back to it after the 2 years I spent on a television show called The Sound of Music concluded. I went back to it for a couple of years, but then didn't remain a school teacher. But the skills that I developed and the joy I got out of teaching were very valuable when I then subsequently was invited to become a senior tutor at the Country Music Academy in Tamworth, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And I did that for 6 years. And I thought that was enough at that point because I felt it was time that they expanded their repertoire of tutors. But it was a wonderfully intense 2 weeks each January for 6 years in a row, and I loved it. And I met a lot of young performers who've gone on to be quite successful in the country music field. And the skills basically for writing good songs are the sort of skills you can apply to almost any genre, whether it be folk, pop, country, rock, even some of the more middle of the road pop stuff.
Yeah.
You use the skills you develop across a whole range of genres to write better songs. So it was a wonderful experience, and I met some terrific people.
Fantastic. And Mike, before I let you go, because I know you got a busy day, you've got a tour that's going on at the moment, I believe. It's you've got a show here in Sydney at the Petersham Bowling Club, which is in November the 30th. It's a Sunday.
Yes, it is. I've played Petersham Bowling Club regularly for a number of years. The venue and the performances there are run by an old friend called John Gallagher. John and I have known each other since the late 60s, actually. He's been a huge supporter of acoustic music, and the Petersham Bowling Club is a wonderful little venue. It holds around about 200 odd people. It's an enthusiastic audience who are generally very supportive, terrific listeners. And this will probably be the last I will do as a touring performer. I've just turned 80. I turned 80 in August, and
happy birthday, Mike.
Thank you.
Late birthday.
Yeah, and I committed myself to saying at that stage when I did turn 80 that I would not do the long drives and the long performances, because I'm on this tour. I'm all the way to Melbourne and back in the car. And Marianne gets a little worried about the amount of time I spend driving, and I've got other things I want to pursue, other creative exercises. I've got a memoir based around 80 of my songs, which is almost completed. I've got a bunch of new songs which I'll record next year, just solo guitar and voice. And I've got a novel that I'm about 45,000 words into, which I'm keen to complete. I put that aside for the last 3 or 4 years, actually. I want to go back to that. So there's plenty to do and plenty creatively to pursue, but the long tours are probably off the agenda now.
No, I understand. And Mike, before I let you go, you got to come back on the show to tell us about the memoir, the new songs, and the novel.
Yes.
But to get tickets for the show at the Petersham Bowling Club, they just go to the Petersham Bowling Club website, I'm assuming.
You can do that, but the better way to do it is to go to my own website.
Right.
If you go to mikemcclellan.com.au/concerts, that will take you straight to the list tour. Actually, I go all the way to Melbourne. There's about 11 or 12 shows in the tour. If you go to the concert page on my website, you'll find the direct link to book for any of the shows, and in particular, of course, for Petersham Bowling Club.
Fantastic. Mike, thank you again. It's an absolute honor and pleasure to have a chat with you. Hopefully we can do it again soon. And good luck with the shows and all the projects that you have going on.
Terrific. Thanks, Biagio. I'd love to talk again when we get the chance.
Absolutely. Have a great day, Mike. Thank you for the chat.
Bye now, mate.
Thank you. Bye.